Episode 214, Time Flies, but You're the Pilot.
You're listening to the very best podcast in the world on health, wealth, and happiness. Please remember to leave a review and share with all your friends and family. And here is your host, Lars Hilser.
And it's Thursday, I think. Welcome to the very best podcast in the world, your only source in the universe for personal supremacy through health, wealth, and happiness. Now, today we're going to talk about time. And I hope that I'm able to wrap this episode up in time because usually things get out of control quite nastily. And that's why, it's kind of like very interesting to see whether we will be able to wrap this episode up. Now, you're the pilot of your own time, and time flies. That's, I think, inevitable. But the really important thing to take away is that you, as the pilot, have a lot of influence over your time, and that's the things, or the multiple things we're going to go through in this episode. How you can, extend your time, make your time more efficient, etc. So, for instance, we're going to be talking about time management. We're going to talk about how to slow down the plane. We're going to talk about longevity, which is, insanely important and a very important aspect of our lives, how to extend it. And that you should be using time for family and friends more than, for the workplace, or, even worse, for political work that you may be doing. So, in terms of time management, I lined that up at the very top because it's just insanely important. And I'm not talking about having an agenda or a diary or an itinerary or whatever. I'm talking about cutting out most of the BS in your day. And let me give you one example. I was with a big corporate client, and this was in the southern part of Europe, where the clocks tick a bit slower, and meetings would last for hours, and the things discussed there were just so meticulous, and I didn't have time for that. So we had this gorgeous intern at our in the department that I worked for as a consultant, and I ended up sending her. Number one, gave her a significant confidence boost because she, as an intern, was there speaking for the department. Well, at the end of the day, she was taking notes, right? And however, it gave her such a confidence boost that we really managed to get her elevated and, into a position where she just felt insanely important at an intern level. So that was interesting. Number two, the really interesting aspect was that I was able to get the contents of the meeting boiled down by her to 15 minutes. So instead of wasting 3 hours of my life listening to all that, all that stuff, all the discussions going on, all the BS being discussed, besides all the small talk and the chit chat and whatnot, it was able, it was just so liberating. It was just insane. And that's what I'm talking about in terms of time management. If you're formulating an email, right, for instance, to a colleague, pick up the phone. You'll be able to boil that thing down to a 2-minute phone call, and boom, you're done, right? Next, there we go, finished, off the task list. Instead of, sitting down, writing an email, reading over the email, reviewing the email, doing another iteration, and all of a sudden half an hour is gone, right? And there's no need for that. In most cases, you can just simply pick up the phone, reach out and touch someone, as the great marketing slogan used to say sometime in the very distant past, many, many moons ago. And those are the kind of things that I'm talking about in terms of time management. Now, next point, making time less making time fly less quickly, or as we put into context of you being the pilot of your own time, of your own lifetime, is how do we make the plane fly, the plane named time fly less quickly, right? So we want to put on the flaps and we want to decrease the, the engine performance, etc. How do we do that, right? I went into that also many moons ago. It was one of the earlier episodes where I discussed the fact that time, we all say time flies, but why does it, right? It's because of all of the repetition that's going on in your life. It's like Groundhog Day. It's like everything, every week, every day of the week has its agenda, and you've got your fixed points and you've got your focal points, and everything is just so routine. And this routine, in turn, leads to your perceiving time flying faster, because a lot of the stuff that you're doing is on autopilot and the mind doesn't really get new experiences. That's why, vacations, for instance, if they are memorable for whatever reason, are that, right? Because it's something different. You're experiencing something out of the ordinary, right? You get to sleep in, you get to experience new sensations, be it in its smell or sound or whatever. That's, speaking of sound, that's Stevie fighting off bears in his sleep on the couch. And anyhow, it's just insanely interesting how that performs. Now, how do we get out of this cycle, of this routine, right? So it's, for instance, learning a new hobby, and progressing in that is going to put you into a situation where time seems to go slower, simply because you're not doing your repetitive routines, but you're breaking out of that. You're learning something new. So it's about educating yourself. It's not about, binging Netflix or something. It's about reading books. It's about putting yourself into this world. It's about starting something new. It's about, that whole ordeal. And all of a sudden, your life is going to feel slowed down, not decelerated necessarily. But it doesn't seem like Christmas and, all of a sudden it's Christmas again. Where's the year gone? That's going to subside as what's the word I'm looking for? As a consequence of that. There we go. Now let's get to longevity, because the only asset you have in life is your lifetime. And if you're not looking at external influences killing you, time does. Right? And so it's like, how do we stop that? Well, prolonging life is a difficult thing. I'm not going to get into it into too much detail, but it's a lot about the things that we've covered in this podcast. If you're a loyal subscriber, the other thing, for instance, is, nutritional diet. The other thing is, de-stressing. The other thing is consuming less alcohol, and all of those good shit, all of that good shit that the people, that science promotes. There are tons of books on it. So I recommend reading into that, because, despite the fact that your life may be stressful now, there's no reason in shortening it by taking in shitty food or not enough exercise or anything else of that sort for that manner. So that's, something important to look into as well. Last but not least, using time for family and friends, right? It's about investing time wisely. And, you've got your, 38, 40, 45-hour work week, and that's what you get paid for, right? A lot of us forget that. So after these 45 hours, it's shop closed. Hey, boss, you want to renegotiate, my overtime or whatever it is at the end of the day? Pay me for it, and pay me well for it. You're stealing my lifetime, and it's not worth my time if you're just, paying me for these 45 hours, right? I could be going self-employed. I'd be working 100 hours a week, probably, but I know what I would be doing it for, right? And a lot of these things are something you have to figure out. Most importantly, it's about using the time you have with the people you love. And I think that's one of the key aspects all of us have to learn. And, going down that route, it's also about yourself. It's about developing yourself. It's about learning. It's about, new skills. As we mentioned, how to make time fly less quickly. The more you learn, the slower your life or perceived, the perception is that your life is going to go slower, which is going to be very rewarding because you know all of the stuff you've done. Right? It's not on autopilot. You're not going to forget it. Your mind's not going to put it away as, check. We've done it every day, so I'm not going to save it. And those are all the experiences, I think, which are about using time for family and friends. So in that sense, let's wrap things up here. I hope I was able to give you, a little bit more pilot training in that sense. And I look forward to speaking again with you tomorrow. And have a nice rest of your Thursday. If you've already had your Thursday, have a nice night and leave your hands above the blanket. And we'll be back tomorrow when we're going to talk about, in our exercise episodes, 10 things that losers say and why you should get rid of them. Peace out. Bye, folks.